Oh yeah, welcome to Weddings Uncensored, where we drink and talk and talk and drink. I'm Kyle.
I'm Allie. Cheers!
Cheers.
Happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday.
We are at my house today.
We're changing it up
We're
today.
changing it up for those who are watching and not
I
listening.
know they're like, wait, this is not the normal
Set.
but it's all good. We're testing out new mics. We're
Uh-huh.
testing a new location.
Yeah. Just like
Um,
mix it up.
let's
Keeping
just
you on
say,
your toes.
yeah. If we get 15 likes on YouTube, we'll record here again.
Most people are just listening and
It's-
not watching on
It's
YouTube,
you and
so
your
they
entire
don't.
team liking it.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't have to drive to you. Yeah, I know. It's okay. It is a nice little change of scenery, though. We're reporting live from Huntington Beach.
Yes.
Gorgeous day.
It's not live, but it's okay. It's a great day today.
We're also not reporting. I
not
said reporting live, not recording live. Reporting live from beautiful Huntington Beach, California. Today we're gonna dig into vendor etiquette.
Wait, you didn't say the good, the bad.
Oh wait, Jesus. We're here to break down the good, the bad, and the downright crazy of this whole wedding industry. I really hope people are watching
Cheers.
today instead of just listening.
For real. Please just pause the podcast
Pause the podcast.
and go to YouTube.
Mhm.
Yes, please.
We're going to talk about how to make your vendors love you, how to be
Yes.
the ideal client.
Mm-hmm.
I worked a wedding on Sunday, and I just had this bride that was just the most lovely, organized, laid back, but still like on top of it, like just a dream
That's
client.
nice.
The whole planning
That's nice.
process, the day of, and it just made me think like, how can we encourage our couples
To
and our
always be
clients
like
to
this.
always be that way? And just touch on some other kind of like vendor etiquette things that I think people don't know about, like
Yep.
tipping and vendor meals and things like that.
And communication.
Communication.
Communication's huge.
Yeah. So how do you, I mean, everyone wants to be like an ideal client, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the problem with that stems from the like, you don't know what you don't know thing.
Yeah.
So I don't ever blame my couples for not understanding the etiquette or asking, oh, I have to get a vendor meal for my client. Like, they just don't know that.
Mhm.
So it's our job to educate them as
Yes.
vendors.
100%. And I think too, like, at least for photo video perspective, it can be a little daunting or scary because you don't know. Say you book your photographer, videographer. Okay, now what? What happens now between booking? When's the engagement session if we
Yep.
have one? And then usually the engagement session's like 6 to 8 months ahead of the wedding day. So like what's the expectation of communication between that time
Yeah.
and the wedding day?
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
yeah.
And I think some clients expect, for lack of a better term, like more communication from vendors. So
Holding their hand, basically.
a lot more hand holding and a lot
Yeah.
more like check-ins.
Mhm.
And I think it's important to know that like if you've hired professional good vendors, the fact that they're not checking in is not a red flag, right? Is that
Yeah.
correct?
No,
Like,
it's good.
because they already know what they're doing.
If it's a good vendor.
If it's a good
Yes,
vendor, yeah.
if
If
it's a
you
good
hired
vendor.
your cousin to be a photographer, like that's a whole different story.
You should really follow up and make sure
Yes.
they know what they're
That's
doing.
a whole different story. But if you're working with a planner or even like a month of coordinator, if you have hired real vendors, like there might be less communication than you think. I had a meeting with some clients literally just yesterday, and they were like, okay, we're 6 weeks out from our wedding. We feel like we haven't heard from our DJ. We feel like we haven't heard from our photographer. And I would say commonly that kind of stuff comes up maybe like a month before,
Yeah.
where they start really actually digging into your details.
Yeah.
And like pulling back the curtain a little bit, it's partially because we're busy. We have weddings every weekend.
All the time.
More than likely,
Yes.
maybe multiple. So we can kind of only compartmentalize in our brain the wedding that's coming up.
Yes. In the next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as a planner, it's a little different, right? I'm getting questions from clients that are happening all the time. But
Yeah.
like if you're reaching out to your photographer to start talking about your shot list and it's 6 months away, like they're not there yet.
No.
They're not there.
And I don't think you don't need to be there yet either.
True.
You really don't, because you're still probably haven't finalized everyone who's going to be there in the first place.
Yeah.
So I would say like if it's I'd rather a couple come and ask me all the questions than just to like stay silent and worry that I don't care, I don't know, or I'm unaware of something happening.
Yeah.
So for the people is if you have questions, go ahead and ask.
Yeah,
Especially
definitely.
before the wedding, go
Yeah.
ahead and ask. That way, like, you don't have to assume anything. I'd rather just like answer and validate, or just help you feel more comfortable of like, okay, hey, it's all good. Like, we literally may not talk for like 3, 4, 5 months from
Yes.
now. It's
Yeah.
it's okay and it's normal.
Yeah.
It's not weird.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good lesson for vendor friends out there is to like clarify your communication process from the
Yes.
beginning so your clients don't feel like they're ghosted.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, as a client, as a couple that's getting married, it's okay to ask all the questions. I encourage you to ask
Yes.
all the questions. We'd much prefer that. You don't know how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Even when you're vendor shopping, right? Like if a vendor, if a DJ or a photographer is making you feel stupid or making you feel rushed because you're asking too many questions, like that's not the right vendor for you. Like
Yeah.
it's okay. I will say one of my requests and my tips is like, as a planner, people have a lot of questions about a lot of things, right?
Mhm.
Every aspect of the wedding they're asking
Yes.
questions about. I love when clients will save up all of their questions for like one call or one meeting, or give me a big fat email and like
Mhm.
list everything at once
Versus
10 emails or text messages, or like this thought popped into my fucking brain
Yeah.
and I need to ask Allie now. Like to try their best to streamline that communication, I guess.
I think making a note would be good because I'm sure you're going to have more questions consistently
Yeah.
come up about your wedding that
Yeah.
you just don't know.
Yeah.
So I think maybe just making pin the note so it's always at the top.
Yeah,
You know?
create a shared note with your partner and
Exactly.
be like, hey, these are things that we want to ask Allie or Kyle or
Yeah,
our
yeah.
DJ or whatever, and like save it up
Mhm.
so that we're not getting peppered with so many
Yes,
emails.
yeah.
I mean, a planner's inbox is like a very scary place.
I don't want to imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine all the vendors, the clients, your own crew,
Yeah.
right? Because you have to still delegate who's going at where at what time and who's assisting.
Yeah.
So yeah, no,
Yeah.
no Pat.
And I
No,
think
thank you.
that is another important thing to think about though too, is like if you're a couple, if you're a vendor, I would say a lot of the times the venues and the vendors are only communicating with the planner or the coordinator.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you might, as a couple, feel like you're out of the loop, but that's kind of by design, right? We're supposed to keep you out of the loop about some of these communications. That's why you hired a coordinator, so you don't get CC'd on every fucking thing about vendor parking and whatever, like all these stupid questions.
Yeah, and I definitely rely nowadays. I don't really work with planners I haven't worked with before. So I think it can be very different because when I'm working with you or other planners I like working with, I don't need to ask for a timeline because I know that you're on top of it.
You know when it's gonna come.
And 2 to 4 weeks ahead of time, I'm gonna get the timeline. I'm gonna take a quick look and I'll be like, Allie knows her shit.
Yeah.
Everything looks great.
Yeah.
And I don't need to go communicate and like
with the couple again.
So like, hey, just wanted to let you know timeline is good.
Yeah.
Like,
but I think some couples want that a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's that reassurance, which I understand where they're coming from of why they would want that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of interesting. So maybe, you know, talk to your planner, talk to your partner and be like, what would make me feel good? Because I think if a couple were to come to me and be like, hey, we trust you, but like a monthly check-in would make me feel great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, awesome. Like let's set that up.
Yeah.
Some planners will have kind of like set communication. You know, we do a quarterly Zoom meeting. We do monthly email check-ins. Like we do this many calls. Some planners actually only allow a certain amount of communication in their contract.
Yep.
So, you know, I guess the positive side to that, I've always felt like that was a little nickel and dimey. Like you can only call me 4 times. Like that seems crazy, but you know, it does make you save up your questions and make sure you're streamlining your communication.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I could kind of see both sides.
Yeah, because I can understand if you are worried about something or you're just worried, although they're gonna even show up. I haven't heard from them in 6 months.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I literally haven't heard from my photographer in 6 months.
And even the videographer too, because most of the time we'll just go off of whatever the photographer is already doing. At least for me. But yeah, so I think if you as the couple have an expectation of this is going to make me feel better, then communicate what you'd like to the vendor to validate and make sure that you're still breathing, right?
Yeah.
And you're not worrying and
Yeah.
things like that. So I think it's a combination of the couple needs to ask, but the vendor should also ask, like, is there a certain expectation that you have of
Yes.
how often we're communicating
Exactly.
before the wedding?
Yes, and I love that. And they should be able to, a vendor should be able to answer that question. They should have their workflow
Yes.
and their, communication process, and they should be able to answer that as well.
Sounds good.
My other thing about pre-event communication, and again, this is something I communicate to my clients, but like email, please, and other vendors too. I can't believe the amount of text messages or like Instagram DMs where people are like asking me, hey, I'm this DJ and I'm working with you on this wedding, like via Instagram DM. Like,
Please send an email.
what the hell? First of all, it feels so unprofessional. Second of all, we all have a million like inboxes and DMs and texts and stuff. Like, I tell my clients, like, don't text me, not because I don't want to hear from you, but I will miss that text and you won't get an answer, and then that'll make everybody mad in the end.
100%.
So, like, figure out a way to communicate professionally. That's not just to couples, but to vendors. Like, I cannot fucking believe
just
how
email.
bad people are.
Let's just call it just email,
and
unless the
email
vendor
me
says.
back. Why do I have to hound people?
Yeah.
Why do I have to hound people? God, it's so fucking rough.
Oh yeah, if you want to be a great couple, respond immediately.
Yeah, that goes both ways.
And that goes like within 24 to 48 hours, respond to the email. Even if you can't answer it, just say like, hey, I'm busy for the next 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
I don't have time to deep dive and answer this question, but I'll get back to you
100%.
on this date.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I'm guilty of not responding quickly enough sometimes, but I would say at least 95% of the time, I'm really good about like, hey, I just saw your email. I'll get back to you in a minute, you know?
Yeah, that's true. You expect your vendors to respond in a timely manner, and as a couple, you should respond as well.
Yeah.
And I think that goes along with like being organized and having answers to things or opinions. Like, I have these really chill clients. There's gonna be sound issues.
No, you're good.
I have these really like chill brides who are like so cool about everything and like don't care and like what, and I'm like, okay, well, you have to care.
That's great. You need to care about something.
A little. Like, I still need you to answer my questions. I still need you to.
It's not my wedding.
Yeah.
It's yours.
I still need you to pick the song that you want for this. I still need like whatever. And all of these decisions is overwhelming, and you can get like decision fatigue from everything. But like being laid back is different than like not responding or like not making decisions.
No,
that's
100%.
a huge one.
Well, you just made me think about the DJ situation. Shot a wedding on either Friday or Saturday. I did both. But one of the nights, the couple sent the songs for like the dances the day before.
Yeah.
And the DJ was like, I guess, like,
yeah,
I could see the DJ was upset about it. But I'm pretty sure he probably asked ahead of time of like, hey, I need to know the songs.
I'm sure he asked a million times.
I'm sure the planner did too. You know what I mean? So,
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
So please, for at least the DJ's sake, respond about the songs and the entryways, because those are stressful moments for a DJ.
Yeah.
Is when you're walking down the aisle, the processional.
They matter. Make sure they have all your music, the right version of your music, that everything's queued up,
starting at the right point.
Yeah.
Like audio and all the issues that can happen on those, because everything works until 150 people come into one area and no one puts their cell phones away.
Yeah.
And audio cuts in and out. Like all of those things.
It's probably funny because there's probably some like couples out there that are listening that are like, of course I would get my DJ the songs on time. Like, I've been thinking about this for 6 months. How would I not know until the day before what my song choices are? But I'll tell you what, that's not incredibly uncommon. Like, we are getting answers to things 48 hours before the wedding. Yeah. Seating chart changes, and
seating chart changes always happen.
Change. I mean, and that's like, it is what it is to a certain extent. But like, we changed our mind on doing this mother-son dance. I mean, major changes to the timeline the day before is very common.
Yeah.
So if you are one of those lovely organized couples out there that thinks this whole conversation sounds psychotic, like it's really not uncommon for that kind of stuff to happen.
And think to yourself, have you told your DJ the songs that you want? Because we got couples listening right now. Have you sent that information over to your DJ?
But is the DJ asking?
Yes. And if it's not, have you cleared up the expectations of what your communication will be like?
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about pre-communication.
Pre-event,
So I think now it's on wedding day communication.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. At least from my experience, I feel like I try to match the energy of the couple,
Yeah.
or if I see it going down, I try to lift it back up.
Yeah.
And that's just setting the vibe and just
The
trying to be
energy, yeah.
professional, bring the energy, making sure everybody's having a good time. But I will say, if you're not having a good time, it's going to be really hard for your bridesmaids, your groomsmen, your family, your vendors, your photo video team that's standing next to you the whole day.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard for them to also be like
Yeah.
positive and energetic. So
They're matching your vibe.
yeah,
a
like
little bit.
we obviously want to like encourage, and if you get in a little slump, we're here to pick you
Yeah.
back up.
Yeah.
But it's still your responsibility to like, you know, I don't know, to be emotionally aware of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard. I mean, you don't know how you're going to feel until
Yeah,
that day. You might
seriously.
think you're going to be so laid back and then you're fucking stressed.
You're-
Or vice
You're a wreck.
or vice versa. You think you're going to be like so anxiety ridden, but you're able to just sort of like let it all go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, on the day of communication, if you've hired a good coordinator, which all of our clients should be,
Yes.
all of our listeners should be, then your coordinator really should be handling most of the vendor like communication that day. Like you should not be worried about timeline. You should not be checking in with
The
the,
caterer.
the bakery delivery that's late. Like you should not be worried about timeline things at all. So hopefully you've done enough pre-work that feels easy,
Yes.
breezy. But I would say on the day, how to make your vendors love you. Obviously, be laid back, be energetic, be fun, be happy. We want that. And, you know, that would be ideal. But also, like, be prepared and know the things that you want and don't be afraid to say it. So,
Yes.
like, if you want that shot of your dress in the window or like whatever, or I really want my first look to be over here, like communicate
it.
that.
Yeah.
If your hair and makeup doesn't feel the way you thought it was going to, say that
Yep.
out loud, you know,
Yeah.
like if there is a last minute change or something, which there will be, something that gets fucked up, like it's okay, but talk about it with your team.
Yeah.
Because it's hard when you can tell that, like, you've had it before where you can tell they're not happy, but you
Yep.
can't figure out what it is, and you're like trying
Or
to
it's,
like
it's
feed
an
it.
issue with another vendor and you had nothing to do with it, and now you're just like, well, shit, you know.
Yeah.
I've had that a couple times with the couple not being happy with the photographer.
Yeah.
Or like the style that they thought they were getting is not how the interaction is actually happening on the wedding day.
Yeah.
Like they wanted candid, but this photographer is only editorial and they want to pose everything. That's gonna mess with my video. You're not gonna be happy shooting it. You know, like I've had a few couples this year where like, oh, we're super excited about the photographer, and then come wedding day, I'm excited to work with the photographer to see what else is going on. And the couple's like, I really don't feel comfortable in front of them. I feel like all of this is way too posed. Like, I'm video, so I'm recording you being awkward in between all of these photos. And it's like, you don't want to see that on your raw footage, you know, like, and you're not having fun on your wedding day. Like, this isn't fun for you. So, setting the expectations of, well, again, photo, video, that's all I'm thinking about. It's like, what shots do you really want should be asked before the wedding, and then come wedding day, I would prefer, if you don't want to do something or you really want to do something, just tell me. Let's go do it. You don't want to do that anymore? That's fine.
Yeah.
Forget about it. What do you want to do next?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, you don't want to do the first look anymore? No problem. No biggie.
Yeah,
You're
that's
not
true.
feeling it?
Yeah,
It's
and
all good.
Yeah, absolutely. And your vendor team should be able to be flexible enough to work with things. Yeah, I would say.
Because it's your wedding. Like, it's not mine. I'm just here to document and to
we've had
perform
that
what
a
you
lot of
hired
times
me
where
to
like,
do.
oh, we thought we wanted to go and do these sunset shots and whatever, and it's like, on the day, you know what? I just want to have a cocktail with my friends.
exactly.
I don't want to take these photos anymore. That's okay.
It happens all the time.
So be open, communicative, be prepared, know also like what you do want, and you know, knowing that might change a little bit. I would say know that your vendors are human. And just doing a job the best they can. But it's very physically exhausting. It's very emotionally exhausting. We're communicating with so many people.
It's mentally exhausting.
So overstimulating all day to like balance all of the things that we have going on. And know that like they have to pee probably at some point. They will have to have a break and a meal at some point. Like you go to your job first of all, I'm usually working for like 14 hours on my feet. You're probably not doing that at your job.
Yeah.
And then like if I'm sitting down and having a meal for 2
And
seconds.
dealing with somebody's happiest day of their life.
Yes, all the stress along with it. And then like I've been like sitting down like for 1 second and like looking at my phone, and I like feel like the
Right.
the father of the bride is like glaring
by.
at me like, how dare she sit?
Okay, so that absolutely happened at a recent wedding. We were doing photo and video, and we had 2 photographers. It was myself for video, and we have shot probably like a consistent 7 hours, no break,
Yeah.
nonstop.
Yeah.
The reception finally like kicks off. The first dance happens. Everything's good. We all sit down,
Yeah.
and the groom walks over, and he's like, "Hey guys, like
Like, what are you
what's
doing?
going on?"
Yeah.
The party's like, the music is bumping, like everybody's having a good time.
Yeah.
And like, granted, it could have been a great moment, but like in that moment, like we needed a break.
Yeah.
Needed a break.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't like a want.
Yeah.
It wasn't
It's
an option.
really, our job's really hard, guys. Like, we need a break. And really, most couples are very respectful and understanding, but there are some, or like I said, like sometimes it's
Yeah.
like the father or somebody like that,
Yeah,
a
yeah.
fucking cunty maid of honor that is like, doesn't understand
Yeah.
why I might not be everywhere all the
Uh-huh.
time, and I might have to, have
Step in or
yeah,
do something.
Exactly. So I think understanding that vendor meals are a thing,
Oh,
and
it's in the well, it should be in. The
it's in a lot of vendors' contracts, but people don't know what that even is, and that's
Means.
okay. Again, you don't know what you don't know.
Wedding lingo from Pop to Champagne. Can
Right.
you tell the people what a vendor meal is?
It's a meal your vendor eats.
Awesome.
Sometimes. But what I will say about it is, first of all, if someone is there for any significant amount of time, which is usually planners, photo, video, DJ.
Yep.
Those are usually the only vendors that are there, or if you have a musician or whatever. Sometimes photo booth falls in that category if you have them for like 5 hours, but
Yeah.
usually it's photo, video, DJ, and planning team that is there for like 8 hours. If you have a separate bar team that's separate from your catering, like there's venue staff that's
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Think about vendors that are there for more than 6 hours.
Mm-hmm.
They should get a meal. It is etiquette. A lot of catering companies will offer it as a separate line item. So if you're paying
Oh, I see.
$200 a plate for your guests, a vendor meal is like
$50 for them.
$50 or something like that. And sometimes we get a separate meal, this is like in vendor world, this is a big thing because all the guests will be eating this like lovely short rib and salmon, and we get like a shitty like cold turkey sandwich in a box that has been sitting out forever.
Dry chicken.
Dry ass
with a
chicken.
Really sad 2-carat,
Yeah. They're like, this
pieces
is
of shit.
It's not a meal. It's not a meal. It's a
Yeah.
half a dried up chicken breast
Yeah.
and one
Oh,
baby carrot.
And yeah, exactly. A piece of stale bread
Yeah.
and mashed potatoes that have a shit ton of skin in it. You know?
I could literally talk for so long about vendor meals because vendor meals ends up being like the bane of my existence on a wedding day because I, as the coordinator, am responsible for getting all these vendors fed. So imagine I have 8 cranky, photographer, band member, bartender, all these people. They've all been on their feet. They're all starving. We really don't get a full break.
No.
We're not sitting down for an hour.
I say 30 minutes on our contract. It is
Never.
almost never
We
30
usually
minutes.
stuffing some food down our
10 to
gullet.
15.
Yes. If we get a place to sit and like a warm meal, it is a gift.
Yeah.
We are like you've
Yeah.
never seen vendors so excited if they get like a halfway
Yeah.
decent meal and a place to sit for
Yeah.
2 seconds.
Well, yeah, the one I shot on Saturday was a decent meal. I was standing though.
But you're standing, yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's like we literally are just trying to get a little bit of sustenance
Yeah.
in our bellies.
Uh-huh.
So know that vendor meals are a thing, that it is,
It's
expected.
important. Yes.
I had a client recently who was like, the vendor meals are like $75 each, so we're just gonna like order a pizza instead for the vendors. And I was like,
Well, your vendors will just delete their footage.
it sucks. It might be a cost that you weren't anticipating, but it's probably not that much that you can't spring for it for your
real.
vendors. And if you care about your vendors, you should feed them.
You should.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yes.
Please care about us.
And coordinators will have to deal with it and work it into,
Yeah.
the timeline and make sure that it's all taken care of.
I will say too, like specifically on the vendor meals, is I feel like I know how much a couple cares about me
Yeah.
if I get a good meal and I have time to eat.
But I think sometimes it's
I know-
not on the couple.
I know
though.
it's not always on the couple.
Yeah.
But like that's just one of those like little
Come on in.
details.
We have a guest. We have a guest.
Hello.
Taylor from Pop the Champagne is here to hang out. We're talking about vendor meals.
Yes.
Very
Yes.
important. See, everyone knows. But yeah, this it literally will end up being such a thing.
Yeah.
It will be a conversation,
Uh-huh.
and then the photographer is vegan, so I have to make sure I get a vegan meal
Yeah,
for them,
yeah.
and it's a fucking thing.
Yeah,
So
it's
just know that.
it's a thing. It's
Yeah.
a thing. But it's worth the extra effort to put into your vendors because
Yeah.
the vendors will give it right back. You
Of
feed
course.
them well, you treat them well, we're going to be excited and happy to be there with you. And
Well, what's your opinion on this? Because I have a lot of people ask if they need to make a table for vendors or like where the vendors are going to eat their meal.
yeah.
And I have had a couple of weddings where they did make like a vendor table like on their floor plan, like
Mhm.
there was a place for them to sit. And I have had a couple photographers that actually ask that they get seated amongst the guests.
Oh,
So that they,
interesting.
first of all, they don't miss a minute. They're sitting
They're
and they
there.
get to eat,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
they
yeah.
don't miss anything.
Yeah.
For me, I find that very awkward. Like I don't want to sit with your aunts.
No.
If
No,
I
thank
do get
you.
a 20-minute break, I want
I
to
don't want to be
go-
around people I don't know.
Yeah,
It's
I
called
don't really wanna be
social
ar-
anxiety.
I don't really want to be around anybody, honestly. Like if I do get a 10-minute break on your wedding day, I just want to sit for 10 minutes in silence and like
Scroll on Instagram
Yeah.
while I eat to just
Yeah,
offload for a little
recharge
bit.
the battery for
Yes.
like 2 seconds.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I would say overall, don't create a place for your vendor. Like they can go back in the kitchen and
Yeah,
eat
yeah.
for a couple minutes. And we're
Yeah.
complaining about having to stand and eat, but
Yeah.
I think it's weirder to like be sat amongst guests.
No, I'd rather sit and be away from
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
than within all of the guests.
Yeah.
100%.
For
I mean,
sure.
that's just me though, just because
It's a
I
rare
have to
thing
be-
that I've seen, but I have seen it in a few photo video contracts.
I think it's because I'm so like aware and on while working
Yeah.
that when I have an opportunity to not work,
Yeah.
I really don't want to work. I
Yeah.
don't want to have to like try to engage in conversation. I don't
Imagine
want
having to like engage in conversation with someone's weird grandpa that you're like,
no. Well, even like
you're still working
and
then.
even
You're still
sometimes-
on.
even sometimes with my own team though. Like
yeah, I don't want to
like
talk.
when I'm eating, like yeah, we're cool, but like let's just enjoy this moment of silence, right? Or like just
so
go on
rare.
our phone. Yeah, it just doesn't happen. So I think it's because we're so overstimulated by
is.
that time and we've been on and looking at timelines and stressed out about making sure we are where we need to be
Yeah.
at all points and times
Yeah.
of the day.
Yeah.
Texting the coordinator, texting the photographer,
Yeah.
like all of the things. So yeah,
Yes. So we beat it to death, but feed your vendors and allow them to be human
Yes,
and go
please.
pee if they need to go pee. Sit down if they've been on their feet for 6 hours. These
Mhm.
are all common things.
Mhm.
And I think the last thing that we wanted to touch on is tipping, vendor tipping. This is kind of like another thing that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
And
You should
might
just tip
not-
us. Thanks.
Yeah. You might not realize that this is
Yeah.
something that is relatively expected. I would say, candidly, vendors get tipped 60 to 70% of the time.
I usually get like
Would you say that? Like,
I've been getting like 20 to 40% of the time.
okay,
It's been pretty low.
been pretty low.
I think
And
this
that's-
year has been low. I think historic years it was a lot more. I'd
A
say
lot
at
more?
least half.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason,
What percentage do you think, Taylor? How many times do vendors get tips?
Now that we send out a tipping sheet, I feel like we get at least 80%. But a lot of clients do ask, like, "Hey, I
What's
don't know
the-
what to do.
exactly.
Like, is this included in my contract? Is this not included?
Yeah.
Can you help me out?"
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
appreciate that guidance, but it's not always 100% that they're still tipping every vendor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I tell people you don't have to tip everybody. Like it is not expected.
you don't have to tip ever.
You don't have to tip.
want to.
Yeah. And I usually actually encourage people to actually wait until after to tip. Like, so it's common to have tips prepared in envelopes and the coordinator will pass them out during the day. That's
Yeah.
like, I would say most commonly
Yeah.
what you see.
Hmm.
But I'm not offended. In fact, it almost means more to me if it's like a week later and I get like an awesome thank you note and a Venmo. Like that's like you really kicked ass and
Yeah.
like did an amazing job, and like I feel like I want to reward you.
Hmm.
I've also like this might be a hot take, but I've had tips prepared that I was supposed to distribute on the day, and I've decided like for the couple that some vendor like didn't deserve it. Yeah.
I mean,
and I'm like,
I
you
feel
can
like-
decide later if you want to tip this
Yes.
person, but I'm telling you right now that your DJ was 30 minutes late. He was a fucking asshole, and he wouldn't listen to me, and I'm not tipping you.
I'm not giving him money.
Yeah,
I'm not happy with him.
No. So, I mean, maybe that's a little
No,
bit of
I
an
don't- I
inappropriate
actually-
thing, but
No, I don't think it's inappropriate because I mean it's your client's money.
yeah.
So like I would have appreciated like if someone didn't do well at my wedding, I would make sure like one, please fix this the next time you do this for another
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
Two, I'm definitely not tipping you because you didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
Like,
and a tip should be like if you feel like a vendor has really gone above and beyond and is really amazing and you appreciate their worth, it's just like, tipping in a restaurant or whatever, like
Yeah.
you're showing your appreciation by
Mhm.
tipping them.
Yeah.
I will say it's we have kind of like a guide that we can make available for download, but
yes.
it's not like 20% because that is crazy.
That's a lot.
Yeah. So if you're
That's a
paying
lot.
$4,000 for your, photographer, you don't need to tip them $800. That's crazy.
No.
A
I
hundred-
mean, you can if you really
Well, you
want
can,
to.
you can, but that's when now we're
But it's a
talking
lot.
about your
It's
vendor
like,
tips
why?
are an additional $6,000. Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
crazy.
no.
So literally $100 bill and a thank you note
Yep.
is will go so above and beyond
Yeah.
for your vendors.
Yeah.
I
I usually get most of like a video contract, I would say averages around 4,000 ish.
Yeah.
And if I do get tipped, it's usually anywhere between like $100 and $200,
Yeah.
and I'm super stoked about
yeah,
that.
I would say same thing for us,
Yeah.
like between $100 and $200.
Mhm.
Occasionally we'll get like a big fat tip, which is
Yeah.
of course lovely,
Yeah, those are really nice. But
um,
if they happen, they happen.
but if they happen, they
and
happen.
that usually means that I've leveled out now, and all the times I didn't get a tip.
Yeah, that's true. All the other times for sure. Yeah, I mean, so know that it is generally, I don't know, I don't hate to use the word expected, but it is
what
etiquette.
vendors usually get the tips?
So I would say again, it's any vendor that is there like the whole time.
Okay.
That's a good question because like delivery drivers, if someone's dropping off
Yeah.
a cake, if
Uh-huh.
someone's even florists, I would say get tipped less, although I don't know why, because I guess they are doing that much work as well. But I would say it's vendors that are there the whole time.
Majority of the day. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. But our florist friends are gonna hate us for saying that. They get tipped as well. It's any vendor.
Yeah.
I would say other than just like someone who's just delivering something.
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
don't need to necessarily get tipped. Although if you have a big fat like rental load in, those guys are working for
Oh,
like 6
yeah.
hours. We just did one and like these guys were working so hard for hours and hours. Tipping your rental guys like a 20, oh my god,
Yeah,
makes
yeah.
all the difference in the world to
Well, I
them.
think of too, like I tip movers whenever we move.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I give them $100 for the 2-3 guys that helped out for 3-4 hours.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So what I usually tell people is there's the real world and then there's the wedding world, right? So
Mhm.
anyone who you would tip in the real world, you're going to want to tip on your wedding day. That means food and beverage. That means transportation. That
Yep.
means hair and makeup, right? If you were to go get your hair done, you would tip your hairdresser.
Mhm.
There's wedding specific vendors that only exist in the wedding world, like a
Yep.
videographer or a wedding coordinator. Those people do not rely on tips,
Yeah.
but it is, I would say, etiquette more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of look at that. And with bar and catering is the one that is always gray area because sometimes it's included, sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
And that's something that you'll want to talk to that vendor kind of specifically about. Like we want to make sure our catering staff is tipped and taken
Yeah.
care of. What's the best way to do that?
Mhm.
And they'll usually answer you pretty candidly.
Yeah,
Again,
yeah,
it
yeah.
goes back to what we were talking about before, right? Just
Transparency.
transparency,
Yeah.
communication, asking the questions, making sure that everyone's happy and clear on what is necessary.
Yeah. And I think too that can also be a question of, at least in consultation calls, like,
Yeah.
oh, like what are the next steps if we want to move forward? Like I bring out the like, okay, this is how much stuff would cost, and that could be a good time if you wanted to ask.
Yeah.
Oh, like, do we also need to provide a tip? Is this including a tip?
Yeah.
Or do you expect it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what would you like?
Mhm.
And I would probably say like a tip is always appreciated, but it's never expected.
Yeah.
So if you'd like to give one, go for it. I will say there is a benefit, at least for photo video. There is a benefit if you do tip. We are very likely to prioritize getting like sneak peeks or raw footage or like a teaser, something like extra that we can create for you as an appreciation of like, oh, thank you for like validating your value of me.
Yeah.
more likely than not, I will provide something either a little faster,
Yeah.
or
You
do
can
something a
just
little
put a
bit more.
sliding fire under your ass a little bit with
Well,
that
it's
extra
like-
$400.
It's an extra
Yeah.
thank you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, thank you for booking, but like, oh, you give me a tip? Like,
Yeah,
I-
that's true. That's a good
been,
point.
There's been multiple times where like a couple will tip and they get their raw wedding videos, and I'll send them the raw wedding videos like 2 days after their wedding.
Mhm.
Because I know it doesn't take too long to do it, but I'm like,
Yeah.
you want to be able to relive the entire day, or
Yeah.
reimagine while you're out on your honeymoon, like what happened or your vows or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Now you have it. There
Yeah.
you go.
There you go. That's nice.
So-
Yeah, that makes sense. Because photo video is kind of the only one that has like deliverables after the wedding, right? The
Mhm.
rest of us pretty much
Yeah,
are
yeah,
like done at that point. But
Couples that say they're gonna give a tip after I give them their stuff, never
never tip.
tip.
No,
after.
no,
Once
no.
they get it,
I know.
communication is gone. I've provided the service.
Yeah.
There's rarely a situation where a tip happens after I've given them everything.
And the last thing to think about to make your vendors love you is after, if they do a good job, reviews.
Reviews, please.
Um,
5 stars only.
5 stars only. Don't give me fucking 4 stars.
Don't give me 4 stars. That happened on my first wedding. She meant to give a 5 on Wedding Wire, but she accidentally clicked 4.
Mm.
And on Wedding Wire, there's no way for you to like
Go back.
change your review. So
Oh.
my first review is 4 stars. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me.
Yeah. It's a really big one though. I mean, reviews for all businesses, right, is a huge thing, but I do feel like it's especially important in the
Yeah.
wedding world. And like Pop the Champagne is really popular on Yelp. We have like amazing reviews. We have one star review, and
It's
it
always
wasn't.
one.
But it wasn't even for a client. It was somebody that scheduled a phone call, and then like
How are you gonna give a review of a phone?
literally. And
You
the-
haven't even purchased the service.
I don't even know. Like, I looked back a million times to see what this client like was and when they scheduled a call. And
They
what
weren't
it
even a
was about.
client.
No, it wasn't a client. It was never a contracted client. And for some reason, some phone call, I have no idea what even fucking happened. And they gave us a 1-star review. We have like 150 5-star reviews and one 1-star review from a non-client. But you
Oh,
better
that
believe Yelp's not
sucks.
taking that shit down.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That's super.
But no,
sucks.
people really appreciate it. And then also like, we're gonna keep talking to Taylor because then she's
Right?
here.
You're here.
But,
you can
like,
validate us.
It doesn't feel so good. Like, obviously, it's great for the business, but sometimes people write these really heartfelt reviews that are
Yes.
so validating. And, like, the whole message of this podcast today is, like, how hard we work.
Be nice. We work so hard.
We work so hard. Please just tell us thank you and be nice to us and give us
Set
food.
expectations. Be
Yeah.
clear and concise.
Feed us.
Let us sit.
Tip us.
Tip us.
We promise we're working so hard. Oh, well, I think we can wrap up on that.
No, that sounds
okay.
good. All right.
Thank you, and see
you
you
next
next
Tuesday.
Tuesday.
Peace.